So conservatives have this thing that they do where they like play crazy when it comes to race. Like, I had no idea. Like, how would I know? When really they like totally know. And, you know, one of the sort of better politicians at pulling this off is Nimarata Nikki Haley, right? Nikki Haley, former governor of South Carolina. And you sort of have to ask yourself, how did Nimarata Nikki Haley, a woman of Indian extraction, parents, immigrants from India, become governor of South Carolina, of all states? Let's carry us back to 2010. Easy answer. She pandered. And she pandered to, like, the worst kind of people. The kind of people she knew she'd have to win over to become the Republican nominee and to beat any white, opponent to become governor. She pandered to pro-Confederacy white South Carolinians. Here she is doing that.
What's your belief about the reason the Civil War was fought?
I mean, again, I think that as we look in government, as we watch government, you have different sides, and I think that you see passions on different sides, and I don't think anyone does anything out of hate. I think what they do is they do things out of tradition and out of beliefs of what they believe is right. I think you had one side of the Civil War that was fighting for tradition, and I think you had another side of the Civil War that was fighting for change. You know, at the end of the day, what I think we need to remember is that, you know, everyone is supposed to have their rights. Everyone's supposed to be free. Everyone's supposed to have the same freedoms as anyone else. So, you know, I think it was tradition versus change is the way I see it.
Tradition versus change on what?
On individual rights and liberty of people.
Now, here's the crazy thing. It turns out the guy she was talking to, as CNN illuminated, was a white supremacist. But she's like, yeah, white supremacists vote too, so I guess I got to pander to them.
New CNN K-file investigation into Nikki Haley. The South Carolina Republican garnered national attention. You probably remember back in 2015 when she called to remove the Confederate flag from the State House grounds after a white nationalist killed 9 people at a black church in Charleston. But in 2010, Haley, who was running for governor at the time, said the Confederate flag was not racist.
And for those groups that come in and say they have issues with the Confederate flag, I will work to talk to them about it. I will work and talk to them about the heritage and how this is not something that is racist. This is something that is a tradition that people feel proud of.
That interview you see there was by a local activist group called the Palmetto Patriots. At one point, candidate Haley said this about South Carolina's Confederate Heritage Month.
The same as you have Black History Month and you have Confederate History Month and all of those, as long as it's done where it is in a positive way and not in a negative way, and it doesn't go to harm anyone, and it goes back to where it focuses on the traditions of the people that are wanting to celebrate it, then I think it's fine.
Let's get some more insights on this reporting from the leader of CNN's K-File team, Andrew Kaczynski. Andrew, what can you tell us about this interview and the group, the Palmetto Patriots, behind it?
So this interview took place in 2010 when Haley was first running for governor. Now this group, which is now defunct, the Palmetto Patriots, was formed, according to them, to fight attacks against Southern culture. It appears to have just been a rather small group that was interviewing Haley, just a few people. And CNN was able to learn that one of those interviewers was a board member, an active member of the white nationalist group, the Council of Conservative Citizens. Now, people might remember, but just 5 years later, that same group was reportedly who inspired Dylann Roof to do that shooting at a historically black church in Charleston. And as we remember, that shooting eventually spurred Haley to call for taking down the Confederate flag from the State House grounds. Now, in this interview, we saw Haley offer sympathetic answers on the state's Confederate history. Let's just take a listen to this clip here of what she said about the causes of the Civil War.
You have different sides, and I think that you see passions on different sides, and I don't think anyone does anything out of hate. I think what they do is they do things out of tradition and out of beliefs of what they believe is right. It was tradition versus change is the way I see it.
John?
Tradition versus change is the way I see it. A lot of people would see it differently than that. So she's a presidential candidate now. You reached out to see if they would respond. What'd they say?
So we reached out to her campaign. We asked, did she know that one of the people interviewing her in this small group was a white nationalist? We didn't hear back on that. We didn't hear back on, any of the clips that we've played here. They did send us a statement saying citing basically what she did with the Confederate flag, saying Nikki Haley's groundbreaking leadership on removing the Confederate flag from the South Carolina Capitol grounds is well known.
It's a question that could come up in the weeks and months ahead as she campaigns in Iowa, New Hampshire.
But then the weird thing about it is he also happened to have been a white supremacist who inspired Dylann Roof, who she later then blamed for being the one to make people think the Confederate flag was about race. Here's that.
Former ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, she went, and she also speculated 2020 VP running mate. She went on with Glenn Beck and floated some conspiracy theories or some potential things about the Confederate flag that would possibly get her some more favor with the base, and how it doesn't relate anything with the Charleston church shooter, Dylann Roof. So let's see what she had to say.
These 12 people were amazing people. They loved their church. They loved their family. They loved their community. And here is this guy that comes out with his manifesto holding the Confederate flag and had just hijacked everything that people thought of. And we don't have hateful people in South Carolina. There's always the small minority that's always going to be there. But, people saw it as service and sacrifice and heritage. But once he did that, there was no way to overcome it. And the national media came in droves. They wanted to define what happened. They wanted to make this about racism. They wanted to make it about gun control. They wanted to make it about death penalty.
So that's weird. Here's the Young Turks bringing out actual clips of Dylann Roof saying why he did it. As it turns out, he didn't need the lamestream media to tell him that the Confederate flag was about race. Here it is.
So Nikki Haley points out that the Confederate flag was about service, sacrifice, and heritage, and Dylann Roof came in and messed that whole thing up. And the crazy national media want to come in and make sure that we were talking about race. Let's hear what old Dylann Roof had to say about race days after he committed the murders and was talking to the FBI.
Why did you have to do it?
Oh, I had to do it.
How come? I mean, that's what I don't know.
Well, I had to do it because somebody had to do something. Because, black people are killing white people every day on the streets. And they rape white women, 100 white women a day. That's an FBI statistic from 2005. That's 10 years ago. It might even be more now, who knows.
Dylan, when you said you had to do this, so basically what you're...
I had to do it because nobody else is going to do it. Nobody else is brave enough to do anything about it. Back in the late 80s and the early 90s, we had skinheads and stuff like that. There's no skinheads left. There's no KKK. KKK never did anything anyway.
So basically you were trying to make a statement or prove a point on behalf of the white race. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in a way.
I didn't know Dylann Roof was a part of that national media that wanted to make this about race.
Okay, his whole attack was about race. And Nikki Haley knows all of this, right? But when she gets to New Hampshire and she's trying to beat Donald Trump, she's sort of now the every, anti-Trump Republican's choice for the better version of a Republican, somebody like their dream candidate. But she, as Chris Christie points out, is too scared to say to white people the actual cause of the Civil War, which again started in the state she was governor of. So ostensibly she knows this history.
She didn't say it because she's a racist, because she's not. I know her well, and I don't believe Nikki has a racist bone in her body. But for purposes of this race, the reason she did it is just as bad, if not worse, and should get everybody concerned about her candidacy. She did it because she's unwilling to offend anyone by telling the truth. And so she isn't willing to say the same things about abortion in New Hampshire that she says in Iowa, because she doesn't want to offend people in Iowa who have a different feeling than people in New Hampshire. But then when she comes to New Hampshire, she doesn't want to offend them either. And she's unwilling to tell the truth about Donald Trump. She says he was the right president for the right time. She says that he should have been given a break after January 6th. She says that for some reason,